You are now listening to Carly's Couch.
I'm Carly.
And I'm Lex.
In this podcast, we discuss a wide array of topics about life and how to live your best life.
Whatever that looks like for you.
Hope y'all enjoy.
Welcome to Carly's Couch, guys. Thanks for joining us again. Today I'm excited about what's happening with politics. It's been very interesting and funny, but also nerve-wracking. But it looks like your boy pulled through, which is good. Shout out to them.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to them. Yeah, to be honest, I didn't think that. I didn't before this year. I was like, oh no, Trump is definitely gonna get reelected. But
You thought he wasn't?
I thought he probably was going to get reelected.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like, people were surprised that people voted. It's like, yeah, I'm not really surprised about that. Like, it's been very close the whole time. The Biden team has been very much like, never felt like they were, had it in the bag at all through this whole thing. So it's been good that so many people did go vote and so many people were adamant about, educating people, getting other people to get out, et cetera, and pushing how important it is. Hopefully some other things will change in the future about the processes and in general, how we do things. But at least this may go the way we hope it should go.
Yeah.
You never know, really, honestly. Like, you never know what's going to happen.
Ever. But we hope so, and it looks like it's going to. So shout out to that.
Yeah. So today we want to talk about authenticity, being your real self, and how do you know if you're being your real self? So, when you're out and about, do you feel like you're the same person, Carly, like in groups with your friends, in groups with your work, in groups with, at the restaurant with the waiter, in different places? Do you feel like you're the same person?
I do. I feel like at this point in my life, it's the most consistent that it's been across the board. And I notice whenever I feel like I'm in an adaptive state. So shout out to Coach A. Like I kind of notice like if I feel like I'm not being myself or if I feel like I'm acting different, like I'm more able to be more aware about that. But I say for the most part, I'm pretty much the same person.
That's good. And so you feel like you know who you are. Mm-hmm. That's good. So essentially that's what we're going to talk about is why that's important, how you identify who you are, and just some ways to tighten that up. Because when you're really yourself, when you're authentic, when you're not moving around your environment or around other people and other things, it seems like things kind of fit more in place, mostly because you're actually focusing on yourself. So we've talked about it before in the past, like how when people break up or relationships over, all of a sudden it feels like now you're working out or now you're doing the things you're supposed to do. And it's like, why weren't you doing that the whole time? Because at some point you lost yourself. And we have a lot of songs about losing yourself in people, and you can lose yourself in situations, with the pandemic this year, that's something to have lost yourself in, friendships, the way they change, et cetera. And so it's really about how you can maintain who you are at your core, and knowing who that is so you don't feel like you get lost in the sauce.
Do you feel like you know who you are?
Somewhat. I feel like I still have some work to do on it. I very much can change a little bit based off the situation, but not at my core. But I definitely see ways where I will kind of be a chameleon in a lot of different situations, which is fine because adaptation is healthy, and it's good for you to be able to do, but also you got to make sure you're not losing yourself. So I feel like everybody kind of knows somebody who, like, they're around somebody else and they start acting real different. And it's like, girl, that ain't even how you be acting for real.
Or on social media. People know you in real life, bro.
Especially on social media. What? That's good, too.
Like, we know you. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I think that's the funniest. I'm like, y'all forget that people actually know you in real life, right?
Yeah. So then first, kind of wanted to start out by exploring, like, why would this even be a topic? Like, okay, like, yeah, I know myself. I feel like people would, off top, when you ask them, like, yeah, I know myself. But what are reasons to why you wouldn't be yourself? Like, why is it even a question to say, like, do you know the real you?
I think a lot of people care too much about what other people think. And so it's like you kind of show people can tend to show up like how they think other people want them to be more approved, to be more liked, to be more accepted. And also, I just think a lot of people don't know who they are in general.
Yeah, that's good. Why wouldn't you know who you are, though?
Because if you've always like lived your life trying to, you know, be what everybody else wanted you to be, whether it's your mom, a partner, whatever, like you literally haven't ever taken time to figure out what it is that you like about you and what it is that you want for you. And I only say that as someone who, you know, used to care a lot about what other people think. And I'm still like learning to let the rest of that go. I only have a few fucks left to give, but, you know, working on that. But if you've never really just sat with yourself, you know, I wouldn't even say isolation, but sat with yourself like outside of what other people think or what you're expected to be or any of these things.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of goes hand in hand with people pleasing. So a lot of people who may have an issue with people pleasing could fall into this category of not really knowing who they are, because who they are is defined by what they can do for other people. And because their boundaries are always moving and very fluid, and what they care about is moving and fluid and based on other people, then that's kind of where they're basing their identity. So if you're a people pleaser, you know, maybe a question that you have about like, who are you without that? Another thing is that a lot of times we want to avoid the realities of our situations. So, you know, you don't necessarily want people to know that you're struggling with something, with money or with a relationship, or it could be any given thing. And so, you know, not that you also need to walk around blasting everything about yourself and all your business, but you may be prone to giving air of something else, and something that makes you feel more comfortable because you don't really want to show those sides.
I think another big one is conditioning. So if you were raised to never show emotion, to never be this way, it's like you don't allow yourself because, you know, like, oh, you can't trust people, you're going to get hurt, or can't have emotions because that's weak. Then you haven't really explored who you are, because you're like completely cutting off a whole side of you that could be like who you are.
Yeah, and that's actually what made me think about this topic today, is that I was listening to something about intimacy, and essentially she was saying that you can't be intimate if you don't know who you are, because it's about like expressing those things. And so there's always going to be this barrier or this gap in your relationships with others and yourself. If you're not intimate, vulnerable, real, and like really being aligned with yourself, it always kind of feels like you're like going against something if you're not. So how can you tell if you're not being your real self?
Ooh, this is a good one. So I think if you like start to question yourself, or you start to really like overthink in situations, like even like, let's say it's a text message and I'm like, oh, should I respond like this? Oh man, it's too many exclamation points. Oh man, I feel like I need to maybe not use this word or use that word. And it's like, wait, what is happening right now? Why are you overthinking? Just doing regular things. Because
you're thinking about how the other person's going to take it, what they're going to think, or, you know, you're thinking too much about for other people, or you're being kind of responsible about how they're going to accept or take things. So that is a good response. Another thing is if you just kind of feel anxiety or fear around, you know, in conversations or doing things in the same way, like all of this stuff goes together, where if you're kind of like, I don't know if I should do this or not, like you're questioning too much. And if you find yourself questioning yourself or what you want to do or how you're doing something, then it's like you're trying to justify if you should be yourself or if you should do something else.
Mm-hmm. Whenever you filter yourself around people, or you, because we talked a little bit about adapting, but like whenever you filter and you just aren't showing up as your full self. So noticing like whenever you're acting different, or like responding different, or thinking through things differently, like with a person or in a situation.
Yeah, or if you're just hiding things from other people too. Like, I don't like to talk to everybody about everything, so I just will keep it to myself, which I think is fine, because again, I can be my real self, but you're kind of, again, creating that barrier if you're not being real with other people about certain things, or if you're like blatantly like, oh yeah, that's cool, or this is fine, or whatever. Now you're also like just totally blocking off like your ability to connect, to you know, take it to another place, to like be open, get help, or comfort, or whatever it may be that you may could use in that time.
Mm-hmm. And avoiding like being vulnerable with someone or intimacy because it's uncomfortable, like that, like keeping yourself in a box where you can't express yourself, where you can't share things. And that also like hinders your relationship. Like not only are you not able to be your full self, but any time that you're not like, or that you have gates up, or that you're not able to, you know, share things that with someone like who you care about, then that also hinders y'all's relationship.
Have you ever been in a situation, whether it was a relationship or a job or a project or a position, where you did feel like you were constantly kind of checking yourself around people?
Yeah, for sure. Business school is the first thing that comes to mind. Like my first year of business school, I felt like I was constantly like trying to figure out, you know, how to respond, how to show up and do all this stuff. And the second year I was like, fuck it, I'm just me. And here we are. And it was a lot better. But also in relationships, like I would say like anybody that I put on a pedestal or that I like look up to, or like that person, that special person, you know, I feel like I care too much what they think. And so that will sometimes like lead me to overthink about how I'm responding to things, or like keep me in this place where I'm trying to figure out the best way to do things instead of just showing up as myself.
Why do you think we do that with people that we like? You know, especially when it comes to building a relationship, and you can logically say like, oh yeah, you know, it takes authenticity to build a relationship. It takes showing who you really are to actually find somebody who wants to be with you. And yet that tends to be one of the main places where you can get lost. But why do you think that is?
I think because we're so invested, like we want them, like we like them, we care about them, we want them to also in turn have feelings for us. And I think a lot of times in relationships, it can kind of be manipulative to only show them what you think they want to see instead of like who you are, because that's not like the real person. It makes me think about whatever that Mrs. Maisel show is. Like she would wait till her husband went to sleep, and then she would go take off all her makeup, take off her eyelashes, put her hair up, and then she would get up right before he got up to make sure she put it all back on instead of just letting him see who she is. I think that's a very physical representation of what we do emotionally often.
But still, why?
Because we want them to like us back, or because we really care about them.
But don't you want people to like you for who you are?
We do, but I think a lot of times, like either one, you don't know who that is, or two, you might not think it's enough, or three, like you've been hurt. Maybe you've been hurt before, and so now you're trying to protect yourself.
I think it comes down to being scared that somebody's gonna leave, scarcity, that they won't be around, etc. But it's just so interesting that when you really break down, like why would you care if somebody left because they don't like who you are, like if that's who you are. And so what is it that you're caring about more than yourself? Like you're really putting yourself on the back burner because you're caring about somebody being there, but you're not caring about what you need and what you want. And so I think not being your real self and not being authentic and not showing up as yourself is kind of based in this idea that you don't show up for yourself, or that you're not putting yourself first and you're not showing up at all for yourself. And so you're kind of letting yourself kind of be whatever somebody else needs you to be.
Absolutely. And I think growing up, like being codependent and always doing that for other people, it's really hard to put yourself first. And let me not talk about anybody else but myself. It was really hard for me to learn how to focus on me. And Wyman and I talk about it a lot, like what it looks like to just focus on us and to focus on our needs and our wants and to stop anchoring on other people. Mm-hmm. It's so important.
Yeah, and I remember having conversations too with people about how it's so different sometimes between men and women, because women tend to be a little more socialized to care about other people and what they think, et cetera, whereas guys have a tendency, and I don't like to generalize, but just overall, like guys really do kind of have a tendency to put themselves first because they're told like to get what they want, get what they need, not necessarily like, oh, don't worry about what they say or what about this or what about that. It's kind of a different approach. And I think that's so interesting because, you know, because of that, you're never, or not never, but you're oftentimes never not feeling stuck in a space. And so sometimes it seems like women or people who are socialized to be more people pleasers, are more nurturing, can feel stuck in situations because, oh no, but whereas it's like, nah, I don't really like you, so I'm out. Or, you know, like you should be able to move around based off of what's best for you, because what's best for you is going to reflect on things moving quickly, better, more smoothly, more aligned, etc. And it just is kind of sucks that it takes life, and I think it takes a while. We all know like older people who like they just say what they want to say and do what they want to do. And also I feel like a lot of people who do say what they want to say and do what they want to do, they may be less like loved sometimes by people in general. At the same time, I think a lot of people hate on that because they wish they could do that or they want to do that. And I'm not talking about being rude and blunt and all of that necessarily. Like, you don't have to be rude to be authentic, and keeping it real and being real doesn't equate to being mean or having to be that person who's like devil's advocate all the time or this or that, you know. But people look up to that, I think. And I think a lot of people aren't that way naturally, or have been taught not to be that way. Absolutely.
And that definitely is something that's admired. And that's why I love old people and little kids. Like, they mad honest. They be rude sometimes, but they're so honest. And it's like, when do we lose that? You know, it's like, oh, well, be polite, be polite. We've been so socialized to like make everything palatable for everybody else. And I love the saying, it's like, you know, am I intimidating or are you just intimidated by me? Like, so thinking of things like that. My mom and I were actually talking about it because she told me, she called me the other day and she was like, hey. I'm like, hey, how you doing? She's like, oh, I listened to the podcast. I was like, great. And she was like, you know, I really liked it, but, and I was like, what? And she was like, I think you curse on there. And I was like, yeah.
The fuck?
And I was like, fuck you mean? No.
That's rude as hell.
No, I didn't say that. But I was
she's not listening to this one.
She is. But I was like, yeah, I do. She was like, you know, Carly Ruth, I just feel like, my mom calls me Carly Ruth. She's like, I just feel like, you know, with your image and like you teaching kids. And I said, Mama, I don't cuss when I teach kids. I don't cuss whenever I'm doing training. I was like, but on my podcast, like, yes, absolutely. She's like, I know, but when you said the F word, and I was like, bro, you curse like a sailor. Like, I love you to death, but like.
Oh, that's even the worst. Like,
I know.
What are we talking about right now?
But then, so she was just saying, she was like, well, I don't want people to associate you with that type of language, and I don't want people to judge you based off that. And I was like, I respect.
Like you're doing right now.
And I was like, I respect that, and I appreciate your opinion. I was like, and also, no, like, I'm not, if I want to curse on the podcast, I will. I'm not on here cursing up a storm ridiculously, but I curse in real life, and that's fine. If I want to curse on the podcast, it is what it is. It doesn't make me any less intelligent. It doesn't make me any less of a woman. It doesn't make me any less of a lady or whatever the hell it's supposed to be. But her and I had a nice little talk about that and other people's perceptions.
Yeah, that makes me think of, I remember like Gary Vee would talk about that before, because he would curse a lot in his videos and in the things he would do. And somebody asked him about that. He was talking about it, or I read him, you know, what he said about it. And he was like, well, you know, if this is who I am, and if I'm in a meeting or if we're talking, you know, business or something, and you choose not to do business with me because I curse versus the results and, you know, the work that we can do, then he was like, that's cool. We don't need to work together. You know, I'd rather be myself and work with who I want to work with. And you don't have to necessarily sacrifice that. Now, of course, you know, that doesn't mean you're going to walk up into somebody's church or to somebody's grandma and be like, what the fuck's up? You know what I mean? But you can be respectful around folks until you figure out who they are. But it's so interesting also that half the time, just like you said with your mom, is that we'll go into situations being real, like holding everything back, and that other person's doing the same thing. And it's like, we could just be cussing together. You know, or people like, you might not want to talk about drinking or smoking or, you know, things that you do. And it's like, that person doing the same thing. And so a lot of times that's what people will have issues with church and with other people, because they feel like everybody's trying to act like they're not a thing, when it's like we could all just be more honest and have actual combos and actual fellowship around whatever these things are, you know, and talking about them and our relationship to them. So it's just such a layer of like phoniness on everything, which again, I don't think you have to run into situations being real extra, but you know, being open to being like really who you are, it is a challenge, especially with parents. Like, no matter how old you are, like, I'm not cussing in front of my parents, period. Like, I'm just not. But if it happens, I'd be like, all right, y'all, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just what it is. Another thing I thought about while you were talking is that it's also a very cultural thing. For example, Russians, or even when you talk to people, you know how you can tell it's different. Like, you may be like, dang, that guy was rude. And it's like, nah, they just don't have small talk for no reason. Yeah. But like Russians, for example, I remember reading something about how a guy was like, he was so offended because he's like, man, why are you so mean, or why are you not engaging me? You know, and if you ask somebody like, hey, how does this look? They're gonna be like, ooh, yeah, I don't know. Or if you make a joke and it's not funny, they're just gonna look at you like, yeah, that wasn't it. And he realized that in that culture, they're being honest. Like, you know, if we're taking pictures, I'm not doing all this extra smiling like, yo, this is what it is right now. And so it's just very different because they said Americans are more socialized to please other people. And we're more socialized. It's not about pleasing per se, but we're more socialized to be likable. That's what it is.
Yeah.
We want to be likable. We want people to like us. And so we're going to be like, hey, you know, ha ha. Instead of just being like, hey, like, what's up? Keeping it honest and keeping it, you know, what it is. And so it's just very much a cultural thing also. And those are kind of things that have to do with other people and watching what you say and being nervous or scared to be your real self. But also it's a very big thing to keep it real with yourself, you know, to yourself, by yourself. And I think that we can think about times, or we can come up with times where we might have kind of had a mask on, or, you know, we're trying to, with ourselves, like, oh man, I'm this big boss, or I'm this or that. And it's like, all right, what's the real situation, you know? So there are some things where it's like, you want to feel like you're this cool person, or, oh, I'm going to do this, you know, to my hair or to my makeup because I want to, you know, look like this or that. But, you know, are you really being yourself? So sometimes we can do that with ourselves as well. What are some other examples of like ways you're not keeping it real with yourself, or things you can be doing or not do?
So trying to keep up with the Joneses, so comparing yourself to other people, like, I think you can lose, like, it's good to have, you know, people that you look up to, maybe in like a space that you want to be in, or like if you're looking up to like an entrepreneur, like, oh man, but the more like you try to be like anybody else, or even compare yourself or your journey to anybody else, like you're losing you. Like there's only one of you, unless you have twins, and then there's two, and even then you're still different. And so that's what makes you special. And so figuring out what special things you bring into each of these spaces, whether it's a relationship, a business, all of those things. And I think so often like we get caught up in that, you know, comparison trap, or feeling like you have to do things a certain way. Just like in business school, the first year they made us wear business casual all year. I fucking hate business casual. It's like my least favorite.
It is whack too. It's all corny fits.
It's so corny. It's corny.
Because it's like, let me get dressed up, or let me chill.
I'm gonna be in yoga pants.
Biz cash is trash.
Yeah, or I'm gonna be in a suit, and it just is what it is. And so the next year I just started wearing my yoga pants, and they'd be like, you know, whenever we have guests, I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur. Like I can wear whatever.
Right. What are y'all talking about?
Let me alone. I'm paying y'all to be here.
Yeah, I know that's right. I would say a big thing with me when I'm not keeping it real with myself is when I'm procrastinating or avoiding things. Like I will delete all them emails from Spectrum. You know, if I owe money to something, or I'm gonna act like that didn't exist right now until, you know, I can deal with the problem. And I think it's important to keep it real with yourself and really like take in like, all right, what's this issue or what's going on, so you can actually deal with it. So if you're practicing a lot of avoidance or procrastination on certain things, or reaching out to people or following up or whatever it may be, that may be something that you're kind of like avoiding something with yourself and like what's really going on with your current situation. And so I think that's a way that for sure, like sometimes I'm not being really myself because I'm just acting like, oh, that's not an issue. That's not really happening. And it is.
I think another one is acting like everything is okay all the time. Even on social media, like, you know, you having a terrible day, post this fire ass selfie and like all these happy stories. And I'm not saying like, don't put your business out there, do whatever, but like, be real. Like if someone asks you, how you doing? You don't have to go into your whole life story, but don't always be like, I'm great. Thanks. I'm good. Because sometimes you're not, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm. So what does it look like to be your real self and to be the real you?
Descriptive. I think to first know what you want, and then go for those things. Like know what you want and you need, and then focusing on that.
Well, not how do you be yourself? What does it look like when you are being yourself?
Oh, man, like for me to be me, or like in general for people to be themselves.
Either. My responses are gonna be in general, but that makes sense too.
I think it looks like being yourself. You start this while I think about it.
Okay, so for example, what does it look like to be the real you? To be the real you means you're not yes, yes, yes to everything. You're taking more of a stand. So you are actually thinking about what you think about a thing, and well, actually this, or I'm not really cool with that. Or if everybody around you is like, Trump 2020, like, nah, not really. Like, or are you just going with the crowd, being the people pleaser, et cetera? So you're going to be a little bit more courageous. You're going to take more of a stand for what you believe in. And you're not necessarily moving based off of other people. So like for me, that's an example of, if you're being your real self, it's not being affected by what other people are saying or doing around you.
I like that. Another one is you do things that bring you happiness and joy, not just other people. Like you're doing things that actually fulfill you. And that's like a goal. That's something that you keep top of mind.
Yeah, because that's the worst. When you can feel when you're doing something, you're like, I don't know if I should be doing this, or I'm kind of wasting too much time on this thing for this guy or whatever it is, Another one I would say is that you have clear boundaries, which kind of goes hand in hand with that as well. If you have clear boundaries, you're okay saying, we could do that next time, or no, I'm not going to come over because I know I got to go to the gym tomorrow, or, whatever it is, because you're being true to yourself, what you need to do, what makes you feel good, where you need to spend your time. You're not putting yourself to the side. And so to have clear boundaries is what it feels like to be yourself.
Man, that makes me think like, we talked about dating. If someone like hit you like, hey, what you doing tonight? You had all these plans. You're like, nothing, I'm free. It's like, no, like you keep your plans. You live your life and people get in where they fit. It do be so hard.
It'd be hard because you're like, damn, I do want to chill.
I really do want to see you. I could push this thing back. It's like, no, fool, finish your stuff and then like work it out. Like it'll work out.
It do be hard.
It is hard. And then the last one is to make sure that you take time to connect with you, to figure out where you are, how you're feeling, what it is that you need, what it is that you want, like just checking in with yourself. Like I think that's probably one of the most important things, and I think we say it every episode.
Yeah. If you're being real with yourself, or if you're your real self and you're spending time with yourself and not really like avoiding yourself. And that sounds crazy and weird, but I think we do a lot of things to avoid ourselves and avoid spending time with ourselves and avoid our own thoughts or feelings, etc. And so now to kind of wrap all of this up is, how do you better connect with yourself and identify the real you? If you're a person who, you're like, oh, kind of act a little bit this way at school, this way around my parents, this way with my friends, I'm this on the podcast, but in real life I'd be struggling, or like whatever it is. All right, how do you figure out like which one of those is me, what's me, and how do I stay there?
Man. I think you just said it earlier, like spending a lot of time with yourself. Like you have to spend time with you. That's literally the only person. Like even if you are in bed with somebody else at the end of the night, you're literally going to bed with yourself and waking up with yourself every single day. Tony Robbins talks a lot about like, he was like, man, I was having a terrible time. I went to Fiji. He was like, and then I was pissed because as soon as I got there, I was laying by this beautiful fucking pool. Like he was so mad. He was like, and then I realized like I'm the problem. Like I can't get away from myself. And so spending time.
What? So what was he pissed about? What do you...
Because he was feeling a type of way. So he thought this trip to Fiji was going to make him feel better.
Oh, I see.
Then he got there and realized like, damn, I'm the problem.
Yeah, you still feel some kind of way.
I still feel the type of way. It's me. And so I think the way that you really connect with yourself is by spending time in stillness and reflection and things that bring you joy just for you, doing things for you.
Yeah. And shifting the focus on yourself. So again, going back, clarifying what your boundaries are, clarifying what's important to you, what your core values are, which I'm kind of skipping a little bit, and knowing what's important to you, right? And so if you really understand that, now it's with every decision you're making, am I honoring that? Am I honoring myself? And then if you're not, like, you kind of got to be real with yourself about, like, all right, I'm not right now, or I am, but like really put the attention on yourself instead of other people.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the hardest things for me to do, because it was always, me focusing like on my family, on a friend, on a person, like a romantic love interest, or whatever. It's like, nah, like anchor on yourself. Like that's where everything comes from. So anchor on yourself. Another one is stop copying other people, or like looking for things to emulate. Like stop letting that be your guide. Like what does it look like for you to be you?
Yeah. If you didn't have anything else to look like,
what would you look like?
what would you just be doing? A big thing is to notice and name your feelings. A lot of these things are ways to escape your own thoughts or escape your own feelings, even copying other people, even, always needing somebody else to be focused on, because like, what are you scared of facing or dealing with or processing? And so a good activity or a good practice is, and I started trying to do this, randomly when it comes across my mind, it's just like, how do I feel right now? And like really try to understand it, because I don't really take time to do that often. But just understanding yourself better by thinking about, how do I feel? Or if something happens, like, what did that, what did that do for me? And really kind of sitting there and thinking about it, name the emotions, name the feelings, and you'll get a better sense of why you're acting a certain way, why you're thinking a certain way, and who you really are for you to be affected in certain ways.
Absolutely. And in that same vein, like, stop denying like the good and the bad when you look at your life and when you look at yourself and like what's really happening around you, like taking everything into account and not trying to make it look a certain way or feel a certain way so you can feel good about it or you can feel whatever, just kind of letting things be, like trying to be neutral and aware of everything that's happening.
Mm-hmm. And then we talk frequently about taking a pause, whether that's for analyzing how you think about something before you respond or whatever. But I would say that waiting before you talk, and cutting particular small talk, and this is something that I actually struggle with a lot, and I'd be so mad at myself every time I do it. But like, I'll be on the phone and then, they might say something and I just say something real quick and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Like, what am I even saying that for? Like why did I say that? And not that it's something bad, but it's just like, that was, I don't know. Like, I was just saying something to fill space instead of just like stopping and like really, what do I really want to say? Or how do I really feel about that thing or whatever? So taking time to just like chill, let it be awkward if you need to, but letting your words actually hold weight, saying what you really want to say, not what makes you feel comfortable real quick, and not what might make somebody else feel good real quick, but like what you actually need/want to say.
And looking at yourself from the outside and listening to your self-talk and thinking about yourself and talking to yourself like you're someone that you love or like your best friend or like somebody that you really, really care about, and really connecting with yourself and giving yourself that same love that you give other people so freely and so often.
Mm-hmm. And then people often say like, what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? But I think that could be anything. And a better question is actually, what would you do if you knew you would fail? Like, if you knew you were going to fail, what would you still do? And I think that's maybe a better way to think about your purpose or what you care about enough that you care about a process and that you care about the experience. And that can help you understand more about yourself, who you are, what you care about, and making sure you're kind of focusing on like those types of things, like what really means something to you, that even if it blew up or it didn't work, you're still glad that that's what you went through and did.
That's a great question and way better to frame it. That's so interesting.
Yeah, I heard that somewhere. I forgot who said it, but I was like, oh, that does make more sense. Because like, what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? Is like
everything.
Yeah, jump off a cliff. I don't know.
Be great.
That was morbid, but whatever. We can talk about that later.
Next episode.
Right. But yeah, so like think about all of those things and how you can better connect with yourself. Really, I think meditation, mindfulness, slowing down a lot of times, just even in what you're doing and what you're talking about and everything, to slow down a little bit, even like how I'm doing right now, like to just like slow down, even moving and talking, helps you just be more cognizant of what you're saying and why. And I think that to notice how you act in different situations can tell you how you feel about how you want people to think about you, or what do you want that person to feel, and why. And so you're kind of being a little bit more self-aware about that. But think about that this week. Like, who is the real you out of, all these personas that you can be and can feel? Who is the real you? What makes you feel, or in what space do you feel the most authentic? And then how can you do more of that? How can you jump into that even more, to see better results in just the things that you're doing?
In those spaces where you feel most authentically you, write down like what it is that you're doing, who are you with, like what does that look like, so that you can recreate that. And then I have a challenge for you, and just the pause. like Alexia said, but also like stop doing things just to do them. Like question, why am I doing this? Or why, like I noticed whenever I took an Instagram break that I would still pick up my phone and I was like, oh man, I'm trying to distract myself from whatever feeling this is and just go look at something else. And I'm like, oh damn, that's a thing. I didn't even realize I was doing it. And it's like starting to question, you know, why we do the things that we do and what we're avoiding.
Thank you for listening to Carly's Couch. As always, I would invite you to definitely check out the last couple episodes as well by Jay. He dropped some super gems on self-talk and how do you switch that negative impact of what you're saying or how you're acting to make things a little bit more positive. And so I really want you to go back and listen to that. Give us 5 stars on iTunes, on wherever else you
Spotify,
can.
Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube.
Leave a review, leave us comments. We do have a few great comments. They did really like your episode, Jay, since I know you're listening. On YouTube, some people left some comments, said it was very insightful. I've been talking about the governor all week. So definitely leave us questions, comments on the site and on YouTube. And where else can you leave anything? On Instagram and Twitter, we're Carly's Couch. And we look forward to furthering the convo with you all.
Yep.
And this week, I'm going to shout out Damo. Shout out Damo.
Hey, shout out to
because he has
Damo.
had such a great year. So despite a pandemic, it's so cool to me how, you know, you can set your intentions of like, all right, this is what I want to do in the next few months. So this is what I'm doing now, which is last year spent so much time with his networking and being very strategic about the types of projects he wanted to be a part of and the people that he needed to talk to and work with. And then even through this year, the type of films that he created for his own portfolio and for himself to get also in front of more eyes. And just wanted to shout him out specifically because he's been the DP working with a team that's sponsored by Budweiser, but they're highlighting small Black businesses. So he's been traveling to Seattle, the Bay. I think he's going to be in Baltimore this week and getting to really travel around and be the cinematographer for these national commercials. One showed during the Thursday night football game. That highlighted a vegan restaurant. I believe that one was in the Bay. But it's really cool to see him doing such big projects now and really, really enjoying the crews because he's getting to work with more diverse crews and really making connections with people who care about the same things. He's getting, even though it's like a Budweiser thing, it's like we're focusing on Black businesses. And so all of it is so aligned and that feels good. Again, you know, when you can be your real self, you focus on projects that make sense for you. And now you're getting more of that. So what you put your energy into, what you're doing more of now is what you're kind of getting more of, which is why it makes so much sense to be in line with what you really want and who you really are. So I guess that kind of actually ties into the episode as well.
Shout out to Damo.
Shout out to Damo. And look him up too on Instagram or Twitter. And he's at Buddy Israel. So BUDDY_ISREAL. And this week's question of the week is, Carly, what's your approach to seeking advice?
I first check in with myself and see, you know, what it is I need, what it is that I'm looking for, and like why I'm seeking external things. So first I always check internal. And then I think about in my life people who are great sounding boards. So I have like great people in my life that are great sounding boards to talk through things, but also thinking about people who might be experts in things or have a lot more life experience. Like shout out to my uncle. He definitely got a call this week. I was like, yo, so I need help with this. And then kind of talking through situations and being open to whatever they said.
I tend to reach out for advice if I'm feeling stuck because I'm a super researcher. So I'll Google the hell out of everything and try to figure things out myself. But for some reason, if I'm talking to somebody and it sparks something, or I'm like, oh yeah, I need to find somebody else. Like recently I've reached out to a couple people specifically about things. I'm like, maybe they would know. Like, you know, it didn't even really hit me to hit them before. But to your point, to look for somebody who's an expert and or in a totally different environment or space than you because they can have a different outlook and tell you how a thing has worked for them or what they have done. Is very helpful. And I'm like, man, I should do that more often because then it's like everything just clicks. So for me, I usually will kind of feel stuck. And then, like you said, I'll look for the experts or the knowledgeable people in my life and around me and just hit them up and try to have more conversations. So think about who your friends are if you're feeling stuck in any place, and who you can reach out to if you do ever need advice. And that's all, folks. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, y'all.